Do you think what you just said has any impact on like the levels of queer people that we see in modern day society?
So like sexuality, religion, politics,
Okay,
and
okay. I'm just gonna be contrarian. I'm not gonna say if I think they're the most important or not, but I'll say they're the most prevalent. They're on
yeah,
most
yeah, yeah,
people's minds.
yeah. That's kind of what the attention economy is about. There are these like values circulating throughout society that are related to money and time, but I also think that there's circulation of values of what would be considered sexual, and those things together interlace to create a certain unified sense of value or meaning that can be thought of as a unit of cultural transmission of identity or of meaning.
Do you think what you just said has any impact on like the levels of queer people that we see in modern day society?
Absolutely, yeah. So I mean, that's what a lot of my theory is kind of leading to, is a topic called sexuation, which is what psychoanalysis calls it, or at least like the ones, some of the writers that I've read about, like Joanne Kopchak, who I think is the best about this. She wrote the original kind of analysis that synthesized the Lacan and Kant, basically.
Mm-hmm.
She goes over and explains this a lot better, and that's kind of where I've based most of my analysis from. And yes, it does imply that gender and identity it's not just socially constructed. So here's the problem with what is considered like the gender theory, gender identity theory, gender performativity, gender ideology, like all of these kinds of
Judith
things.
Butler, like that kind of like
So
wokish gender ideology.
So the whole psychoanalytic argument of sexuation is a critique of that conception of gender, essentially.
Really?
Yeah.
This is a very modern philosophy. When is Kopchak?
90s. She wrote this famous essay called Sex and the Euthanasia of Reason. She wrote it like a few years after Gender Trouble came out, but Butler's book,
Interesting.
because she saw this development of the concept of gender, especially in like Anglo academia, which is what people complain about now, right? So if you go to South America or you go to like Asia or Europe or somewhere, they're like, oh, gender is a cultural export from American
Yeah.
like academia.
It's an
Like
American
like
thing.
it's like Anglo connected with some like French like writers like Foucault and stuff, like post-structuralism, and that's been like the cultural expert, and they're like, we're being attacked by this gender ideology, and
Yeah.
there is something to that. So the psychoanalytic critique of gender goes through the concept of sexuation, which is a very fundamental, important thing that we have like completely forgotten about as a society, and is sort of, I would say, a big reason for why things are fucked up nowadays. And it does imply that yes, the fact that we have a lot more queer people now, it's not an innate identity. It's not something that is a natural instinct. It's not something that is a given with how people turn out in the absence of society. It's actually caused by society and the material conditions that are underlying there, which kind of force certain social activities, force certain structures of thought to formulate in the unconscious mind, both at an individual personal level, but also at a collective societal level, that is inevitably compelling people through this unconscious mechanism to stray away from cis heteronormative gender roles and trying to find some other fit with like a different gender or making up their own gender or whatever. So yes, these things are all interrelated, and I'll get into a bit more of like how that works. But
Okay.
let me maybe just get through. Okay, so attention economy, that's where we end up deciding what matters to us. And obviously the gender issue is a big thing. That's why it's a big thing in politics, is because it ties together a bunch of these things: politics, spirituality, sexuality, and existential death kind of status. Those are like the most significant attention catching things for the human mind, and that's what our unconscious keeps compelling us to. That's why it's such a big topic in discourse, in mainstream media, and just posts you see on like X or whatever other places you look at online. These are the things that will get the most engagement, the most hurt feelings, the most like rage bait, the most whatever. It's an existential thing, not just for us, but for society as a whole. And that's why there's this attention economy of circulating things that is connected to our unconscious mind and drives us to care about things. And I kind of see that as what structures how people relate to each other and like think over time. It's not, the technology enables that, but blaming it on the technology itself is the same kind of like naive perspective that led us here in the first place.